Okay guys, so fresh off the international break, Real Madrid have just beaten Real Sociedad 2-1 at the Anoeta to take all 3 points and continue their perfect start to the new La Liga season. Now this match had all the major hits that we've come to know and love from a Real Madrid game, and we need to talk about it. But first, if you don't know me or you just see my videos for the first time, hey, I am Just Max, and on this channel I talk about football from the La Liga to the Prem to the UCL, and as always, it's always going to be Vizca Barca for me on this channel because I am a Barcelona fan. But I do watch a lot of Real Madrid matches, so why not talk about it? And there is certainly a lot to talk about, from the lineup that Xabi Alonso put out today to how we had a game of two halves. The first half I would say was a bit more attacking from a Real Madrid perspective, and the second half showed us something different from Real Madrid that we have not seen before, but I'm also excited to talk about. In the lineup today we had Thibaut Courtois, who started out in goal for Real Madrid. Carreras, Dean Huijsen, Militao and Carvajal, rounded out that Real Madrid backline. Dean Huijsen, though, he did not have a good game, and we were talking to that a little bit more about why. Dani Ceballos and Aurelien Tchouameni was Real Madrid's holding midfield. Vini Jr., Arda Guler, Brahim Diaz and Kylian Mbappe rounded out that Real Madrid attack, and from the very beginning, I felt like Real Madrid looked nice. And as a Barcelona fan, it displeases me to have to admit this. They look nice. They had the same level of intensity that we saw from Hansi Flick's Barcelona last season, that just characterized how Barcelona was able to suffocate their opponents. And when I watched this game today, I was in awe. It was almost as if they were trying to replicate the Pep Guardiola 6-second rule, whereas if you lose the ball, you have a 6 seconds to win it. That was the level of intensity that Real Madrid approached this game with, and I was flabbergasted. We saw Vinicius Jr. doing a lot of pressing. We saw Kylian Mbappe doing some defending in that first half. So altogether, it was amazing to see. But again, as a Barcelona fan, I did not live for it, because this is not what this is not what I want to be seeing. No, stop. But anyway, within the first 2 minutes, though, Real Madrid did have themselves a goal chopped off for a marginal offside from Kylian Mbappe. And let me tell you, during the international break, we got news that FIFA were going to adopt, I haven't confirmed this yet, but like FIFA were going to adopt the new offside proposition that was put forward by Arsene Wenger. I believe it was that if the body of the player is just marginally offside, then it's not an offside, whereas the body of the player needs to be all the way, clear before it to be considered an offside. And if that rule is indeed adopted, believe you me when I say this, that Kylian Mbappe will be the biggest beneficiary of that new regulation, because let me tell you, that goal, it was just like his knee. It was his knee that was a little bit offside. He ran over it and then, pulled a very good ball back to Arda Guler, who was so very unmarked, and then slotted on for goal. But of course, because of that knee that was a little bit offside, it was chopped off. Once that rule comes into play, Kylian Mbappe, who is already a 40-goal a season man, will see some astronomical numbers when that rule comes into play. I'm calling it now. But ultimately, Real Madrid, though, they will not be pet up. They kept on pushing forward. Again, I have to keep harping on Kylian Mbappe, because he has started the season out lights out. The way he's been playing for Real Madrid, I think he's scored a lion's share of most of their goals from last season up until this season. He's really carried them on his back. The confidence that we are seeing from him this start of the season is not the kind of Kylian Mbappe we saw last season. Last season, when this season started, he struggled to find his footing in La Liga. This season, though, he already has 4 goals in the bag. He's looking scary. He's bending those runs, still getting caught offside, but the rate at which he's getting caught offside is coming down. But also, he's putting himself in dangerous positions on understanding how La Liga players like to play and defend around him, and finding those pockets of space to exploit. He looks little for Real Madrid this season. He looks wonderful. He looks sensational. He did everything right in this game, and I cannot even fault him, because the first goal for Real Madrid comes from just that bit of tenacity from Kylian Mbappe, just being a menace in the opponent's half. The Real Sociedad player was trying to play a back pass to his player because he was a bit under pressure, and ultimately ended up playing an assist. When Kylian Mbappe is in your opponent's half and you want to do in your half, and you want to do a back pass, please make sure that pass is on point. You cannot play a loose pass or a wobbly pass, because he has that speed, he has that pace that can put your defenders immediately under pressure, and that's what we saw, because that pass did not give what needed to be gave. The pass was wayward, and then it put the Real Sociedad defender in a one-to-one race with Kylian Mbappe, who could very well be a 100-meter sprinter if he wanted to be. And of course, he outran the Real Sociedad player. The best part of the whole thing, I think, from Real Madrid's standpoint, was his presence of mind, his calmness. Even when he had gotten the ball, to shift the player a little bit and then pick his spot. It was 1-0 to Real Madrid, and at that point you could feel them growing in stature. Of course, the Anoeta is never an easy place to go visit, so Real Sociedad, they kept on pushing, looking for the response themselves almost immediately, I would say. But of course, I felt like they just lacked that final ball, and of course Real Madrid were defending for themselves too as well. That first time, though, we did see the greatest hits ever, which is the conversation of Dean Huijsen's red card. Now, at the start of this video, I did talk about the fact that Dean Huijsen did not have a good game, and that was because he was sent off at the 32nd minute of the game for, obstructing a clear goal scoring opportunity. And this all starts from Real Madrid trying to put pressure on Real Sociedad, trying to score. Real Sociedad's defense was pinned back into the 18 and even well into the 6-yard box, if I should say. Even they were really stretched to the max, and it was a situation where the Real Sociedad player had just only managed to secure the ball and then putting a ball over the top. It was kind of like one of those Hail Marys, like, oh my God, we need a breather. Please get this thing out of here so that we can reset the defense and start again. But fortunately for Real Sociedad, they did have a player who had stayed up top, to try and see if there was a counter-attacking opportunity, and the ball fell kindly to him. He had a wonderful turn to take the ball away from Dean Huijsen, who was, they were standing close to each other. And at this point, I must mention that Dani Carvajal was maybe 2 steps to the side of all of this going on. So he was also there in the mix of it all. The Real Sociedad player turned spectacularly. And of course, he's in on goal. His first step forward would have beaten Dani Carvajal, whom, even though up until that moment was having a sensational game by his own standards, he doesn't have the pace. Let's be for real. So it was always clear that the Real Sociedad player was clear if he was allowed to take that step. But Dean Huijsen did end up pushing the player. He did not make a play on goal. Now, let me explain to you something that occurred to me in this moment. As I was watching this thing play out, I'm a Barcelona fan. It is difficult for me to comprehend a situation where Real Madrid player gets red carded. So I was not expecting this to be a red card. I was expecting this to be, at the very least, a yellow card and a very stern talking to. So imagine my surprise when referee Gil Manzano dips deep into his back pocket and instantaneously pulls out a red card for Dean Huijsen, whom, by the way, in the first 8 starts of his career for Real Madrid, has now secured 2 red cards. Not a good start. Not a good statistics you want to keep. But that aside, I was very surprised. And of course, there was a lot of brouhaha in that situation. A lot is about to be made about this moment. I know for a fact that Real Madrid TV are about to make a meal out of this. Because what do you mean that Dean Huijsen was red carded? Because even in the whole situation, Dean Huijsen was trying to explain to the ref that he was not the last man. That Dani Carvajal was right there to the side of him, and which, yes, I will agree, but again, you guys were on the same line, I would say. And you've already been turned inside out. So had the player been allowed to go, he was through on goal. The second thing that the argument was it was so far away. Like, the player would have needed to run at least another 35 to 40 yards to like really get that goal scoring opportunity. So really, was it really a goal scoring opportunity? Now, depending on whether or not you're a Real Madrid fan or a Real Madrid player, or a rival fan, or you can argue whichever way, but the statistics remain. He was taken off the pitch, and in that moment, I talked on my TikTok. Now, if you're not following me on my TikTok, you miss out, because I like to write notes and I leave commentaries of what I'm thinking as the games are ongoing. And in my TikTok, I wrote a note I remember very clearly, and I said, can Real Madrid hold a low block for the rest of this game? Because again, it was such a very early situation, 32nd minute into the game, and your budding center back has already been sent off the pitch. Of course, Real Madrid being Real Madrid do not need to defend, because they are who they are. They have the right levels of attacking powers, to be able to flourish even in the most difficult situation. And with the game that Kylian Mbappe and indeed Arda Guler were putting together, it was only a matter of time before that Real Sociedad defense was breached again. And it was breached in the most sensational way, because Kylian Mbappe and Arda Guler putting together a nice combination. Arda Guler, I believe, put in a very wonderful pass to Kylian Mbappe, who at this point had managed to hold his line a little bit better than the first goal that was chopped off. He is very well onside and could have very well, try to take a goal for himself. But this time, Kylian Mbappe decides to turn provider for Arda Guler, who had taken up a very good position in the box. And, before the halftime, it's 2-0 to Real Madrid. And honestly, from an Arda Guler perspective, you love to see it, because after that 6-0 thumping of Turkey by Spain, this would certainly give him the confidence he needs to continue with the rest of the season. Surely. Coming into the second half, though, this is where the game starts to take a different shape. Like I said, it was a game of two halves. The first half was certainly a more attacking half from Real Madrid, but the second half, though, was where we saw Real Madrid's defensive prowess. Now, if you've watched my video from the start of the season, I have always said I want to see Real Madrid's defense tested. I want to see how well they can hold back in disadvantageous situation. And today, they showed me that not only can they attack, they can defend as well, because that second half, Real Sociedad threw everything at them, including the kitchen sink, but that Real Madrid defense held strong. Now, I have to give a little bit of credit here to Xabi Alonso, who is not afraid to make the necessary substitutions that needed to be made, because in that second half, we did see Trent Alexander-Arnold, Federico Valverde, Raul Asensio, and David Alaba coming at different points in the game for Real Madrid, which was to say that they were intent on shoring up that defense to make sure that they got away from the Anoeta with all 3 points. Did we see Fran Garcia, who was sensational in the Club World Cup common? Yes, we did, but it was immaterial at this point, because Real Madrid could barely get on the ball to mount any kind of attack against Real Sociedad, because at this point they were so confident, they were pushing to get that goal back. They did get the goal back because Dani Carvajal did end up committing a handball in the penalty box. Now, again, as a Barcelona fan, I was not sure that was going to be called, especially with what we saw last season. But again, I'm kind of glad that it was called. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm one of those people who will say Real Madrid had a good game when they had a good game. One of the things that had always frustrated me in La Liga, watching La Liga, has been the disparity in referees' calls. I always felt like what is good for the goose should be good for the gander. So like many a times we've seen Real Madrid get away with calls that most other La Liga teams will not get away with. Last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, against, I believe it was Levante, the Barcelona played, we saw that call against Balde for a handball. That, similar situation occurred with Real Madrid versus Barcelona last season in El Clasico, and it wasn't called. So like today, I was happy to see that, that level of consistency was being shown, because clearly we could see that even though it wasn't intentional, Dani Carvajal did have a handout, and it did hit his hand in the 18, of which Mikel Oyarzabal stepped forward and he slotted in a sensational penalty to make it 2-1 for Real Sociedad. And at this point, you can see the Anoeta was buzzing. I felt like they really wanted to get that goal back. And this is where I have to start to commend the Real Madrid players, even if I am disgusted with it. I'm so disgusted. I don't want to. I really don't want to. But the way that they were able to hold their defense, the way that they were able to work hard for each other, the way that they were able to throw bodies in between the lines, prevent Real Sociedad from actually getting that second goal was really, really good. Of course, they did have luck here and there helping them, because there was that bit of play where the ball just bounces back in the between the post and then goes out. Or there was even that moment where Federico Valverde was this close to scoring an own goal because Thibaut Courtois had spilled the ball. So they did have a little bit of luck on their side, but ultimately they held strong. And of course, the substitution for Xabi Alonso proved the long way, kept them into the game. And he did not care if people were going to be talking about, oh, Real Madrid were defending. He really wanted to get away with all 3 points, and he did just that. Real Madrid continued their perfect start to the La Liga season, much to my chagrin, because I would have loved them to drop points here. I'm a Barca fan. I'm always honest about that. I would have loved them to drop points here. They did not do that. So good for you guys. Again, Real Madrid are looking sensational under Xabi Alonso. It's okay though, it's only match day 4. The season is still long. But let me know what you thought about this game in the comment section. Are you impressed by what you are seeing from Real Madrid? Let me know who was your best player. From me today, it was Kylian Mbappe. Kylian Mbappe has been carrying Real Madrid this season, but I also like to see the emergence of Arda Guler. He is definitely, or should be definitely, riding on a bit of on a bit of confidence this season, because it seems to me like Xabi Alonso really trusts him, especially after he didn't get enough minutes on the Carlo Ancelotti last season. But that has been it for me for this match day. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, but until next time, bye guys.